The boxers were stacked so high they scraped the ceiling, and the air was thick with the smell of old cardboard and new paint. For Leo, this was the smell of a fresh start. He'd just moved to the sleepy town of Blackwood Creek, a place so small it seemed to exist in its own little time bubble. He'd bought the old Victorian house on Hemlock Lane for a steal, a place locals whispered about but never walked past after dark. Leo wasn't a superstitious man. To him, creaks and groans were just the house settling, not a warning. His first week was a whirlwind of unpacking and exploring. The town was charming, with a single main street, a friendly diner, and a library filled with more history than people. But as the days bled into one another, a subtle wrongness started to creep into the edges of his new life. It began with small things, keys not being where he left them. A book he was reading suddenly found on a shelf in a different room. He'd chuckle, blaming moving in chaos and his own forgetfulness. Then came the nights. At first, it was just a faint scratching sound from within the walls, something he dismissed as mice. But the scratching grew bolder, more rhythmic, almost like a code being tapped out from the very bones of the house. One evening, while boiling water for tea, he heard it clearly from the living room. Tap, 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 tap. He froze, kettle in hand. The scratching had stopped, replaced by this new, deliberate sound. He crept to the doorway, peering into the moonlit room. Nothing. Just furniture draped in white sheets, looking like a graveyard of forgotten memories. He shook his head, telling himself it was just the old plumbing. A few days later, he was working late in his home office when a chill rolled through the room, so cold it raised goosebumps on his arms. Despite the summer heat, the air grew heavy, and the faint scent of dried flowers, like potpourri left for decades, filled his nostrils. He looked up and saw it. Reflected in the dark screen of his monitor was a figure standing behind him. A tall, slender woman, her features obscured by shadow, wearing what looked like a long, dark, old-fashioned dress. His heart hammered against his ribs. He spun around in his chair. The room was empty. The scent was gone. His breath came in ragged gasps. It was a trick of the light, he reasoned. A hallucination brought on by stress and lack of sleep. But the image was burned into his mind. The encounters escalated. He started seeing her in fleeting glimpses, a flash of a dark dress disappearing around a corner, a paled face in an upstairs window as he pulled into the driveway. He'd hear faint, sorrowful humming drifting down the hallways at night, a melody that was both beautiful and deeply unsettling. Sleep became a luxury he couldn't afford. He'd wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in a cold sweat, with a distinct feeling that someone was in the room, watching him breathe. One night, he was jolted awake by a creak on the stairs. Not the usual groan of old wood, but the specific, measured sound of a footstep. Then another, and another. Someone was slowly, deliberately climbing the stairs. Leo lay paralyzed, straining his ears in the suffocating silence. The footsteps stopped right outside his bedroom door. He held his breath, his eyes glued to the sliver of light underneath. A shadow passed, blocking the light for a moment before moving on. His mind screamed, but his body wouldn't move. He lay there until the first rays of dawn painted his window, the fear a cold, hard knot in his stomach. Desperate, Leo decided to visit the town library. He needed answers. He spent hours poring over old town records and dusty newspapers. He finally found it in a leather-bound book titled Forgotten Lore of Blackwood Creek, a story from over a century ago about a woman named Elara who lived in his very house. She had been waiting for her love to return from a war, a promise he never kept. Consumed by grief, she had simply fled Hawaii. The legend said she still wandered the house, her sorrow so profound it had stained the very walls, forever waiting for a love that would never return. The book described her as a sorrow collector, an entity that feeds on the loneliness and despair of others, drawing them into her own endless weight. The description sent a shiver down his spine. The scratching wasn't mice. It was the sound of her nails on the floorboards as she paced. The humming was her mournful song. The chill was the coldness of her unending grief. He wasn't just living in a haunted house. He was living with a heartbroken ghost who saw his own loneliness, a man starting over by himself in a new town, as an invitation. That night, Leo packed a bag. He wasn't going to be another victim of Hemlock Lane. He'd leave, sell the house, and never look back. As he rushed around, grabbing essentials, the house seemed to come alive. Doors slammed shut on their own. The temperature plummeted. The scent of dried, dead flowers was overpowering. He heard her humming, no longer faint, but loud and clear, seeming to come from every direction at once. He scrambled for the front door, his hand shaking as he fumbled with the lock. As his fingers closed around the brass knob, he felt a frigid touch on his shoulder. He froze. A whisper, like dry leaves skittering across pavement, slithered directly into his ear. "Don't leave. Stay. Wait with me." The voice was filled with a century of loneliness, a chilling plea that promised eternal companionship in misery. He tried to scream, but the sound caught in his throat. He felt his own energy draining away, a warmth being sucked out of him and replaced by a profound, hollow cold. He turned his head slowly, his movements feeling sluggish and heavy. He saw her face for the first time, not in a reflection or a glimpse, but right there beside him. Her skin was pale like parchment, Her eyes were twin voids of sorrow, and a single, perfect tear rolled down her cheek. A tear that wasn't water, but liquid shadow. The new real estate agent who came to list the house a month later found it strangely cold, despite the summer sun. The front door was unlocked. Inside, everything was pristine, as if no one had ever lived there at all. Except for one thing. On the wall by the staircase, a new portrait had appeared, hanging next to the old, faded paintings of the home's previous owners. It was a portrait of a man with haunted eyes, his face a mask of quiet despair. It was Leo. And sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet, new residents would swear they could hear two voices humming in the dark, a sad, lonely duet, forever waiting together. Thanks for watching, everyone. It's stories like these that remind us some fresh starts have very old endings. If you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more mysteries from the shadows. Stay safe out there, and see you next time.